Without anyone to watch her daughter, a struggling mother takes the little girl to work. But she nearly faints when the child walks into the room, points at the billionaire, and asks, "Are you my dad?" Mommy cries every night looking at your photo. What happens next is unbelievable. Grace woke up before her alarm. She always did. Her body just knew that at 5 in the morning, another day exactly like the rest was starting. She got up carefully so she wouldn't make noise and looked at the small bed in the corner of the room. Lily slept hugging her worn teddy bear, her blonde hair spread across the pillow. The room was tiny. One single bed for Grace, a smaller one for Lily, a shared wardrobe for both, and a small table that served every purpose: meals, studying, and playtime. The window faced the building's inner courtyard, where all she could see was the brick wall of the next building. Grace went to the bathroom in the hallway, which was shared with other tenants. She brushed her teeth, washed her face, and tied her brown hair into a simple ponytail. In the mirror, she noticed her tired eyes. 26 years old, but sometimes she felt like she was 50. She went back to the room and prepared breakfast on a small side table where there was a portable electric burner. 2 slices of bread, a little jam, and some warm milk. Lily woke up to the smell. "Morning, Mommy." "Morning, sweetheart. Did you sleep well?" Lily nodded and sat at the table, still drowsy. Grace served breakfast and sat beside her daughter. They ate in silence, a little ritual they repeated every day. "Today Aunt Sarah is picking you up from school, and you'll stay with her until I get back, okay?" "Okay." "Aunt Sarah lets me watch cartoons." Grace smiled. Sarah was the 60-year-old neighbor who looked after Lily some afternoons. She was one of the few people Grace trusted. After breakfast, Grace helped Lily get dressed, brushed her hair, and made 2 braids. The little girl was beautiful, with big blue eyes and a smile that lit up any space. She was the most precious thing in Grace's world. "Mommy has to go to work. Will you be a good girl at school?" "Yes." "Will you be good at work too?" Grace chuckled softly. "I'll try." They left together. Grace dropped Lily off at school and took 2 buses to get downtown, where Whitmore Global's headquarters stood. 40 floors of glass and steel, reflecting the grey morning sky. Grace entered through the employee's entrance, showed her badge to the security guard, and went up to the locker area. She changed into the blue uniform of the outsourced cleaning company, grabbed her cart of supplies, and got to work. Her shift started on the 35th floor. Executives, managers, and important people worked there. Grace pushed her cleaning cart along the marble hallways, barely noticed by the men and women in suits who rushed by, talking on the phone or carrying folders. No one looked at her. It was as if she were invisible. Grace cleaned conference rooms, emptied trash cans, wiped glass tables. She heard conversations about numbers, projects, money, things that felt like they belonged to another world, a world where she didn't exist. The 36th floor housed the president's offices. Grace only went up there twice a week, and always with her supervisor. That was where the Whitmore family worked, the owners of the company. Grace had never seen any of them up close, but she knew they were powerful people. During her lunch break, Grace went to the plaza in front of the building. She sat on a bench, ate the sandwich she'd brought from home, and called Sarah to ask how Lily was doing. "She ate her lunch just fine, and now she's drawing," Sarah would say. "Thank you for looking after her." "Don't mention it, Grace. Lily is an angel." Grace went back to work, feeling a bit lighter. She knew her daughter was safe, and that's what mattered. The afternoons dragged on. Grace cleaned restrooms, hallways, elevators, always in silence, always invisible. Whitmore Global employees walked by her as though she were part of the decor. At 6 o'clock, Grace finished work. She changed clothes, grabbed her bag, and left through the same entrance she'd come in. Then it was 2 crowded bus rides back home, always exhausted. When she reached home, Lily would run to hug her. "Mommy, you're back." "I always come back, my love." They had dinner together. Grace helped Lily with her homework. Then they played a little before bedtime. It was Grace's favorite moment of the day. After Lily was asleep, Grace would sit on the edge of the bed watching her daughter. She thought about the future, the dreams she had tucked away, and the life she wanted for Lily. Sometimes the weight of responsibility felt overwhelming. Grace worked hard, saved every penny, made sacrifices, all for her daughter, all to ensure Lily had a better shot in life. No one at Whitmore Global knew she had a child. No one knew her dreams, fears or hopes. To them, Grace was just another cleaning lady, invisible, with no story, no importance. But Grace knew who she was. She knew she had worth, and she knew she would do anything to protect Lily. While the city slept outside, Grace planned the next day, another day just like the others, another day carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, quietly as always. She had no idea her life was about to change forever. Grace was finishing Lily's hair when the phone rang. It was 6:40 a.m., too early for anyone to call. Her heart skipped a beat. "Hello?" "Grace, dear, it's Sarah." The neighbor's voice sounded worried. Grace's stomach tightened. "Sarah, is something wrong?" "The school called me because they couldn't reach you. Your phone must be out of service." Grace checked her cell phone. Only 2 bars. The old device was always giving her problems. What did the school want? "Grace, the daycare is closed today. A major plumbing problem. The main pipe burst overnight and flooded everything." The words thundered in Grace's mind. Closed today, no warning. "But they can't just shut down without notice." "It was an emergency, dear. They said they'll only get it fixed by tomorrow." Grace sat on the bed, her legs shaking. Lily was on the floor, playing with dolls, humming a song she'd learned in class. "Sarah, maybe you could watch Lily today?" There was a pause on the other end. "Oh, Grace, any other day I would, no problem. But today I really can't. My sister Rosa is in the hospital, and I promised I'd stay with her all day. She's alone, you know? She doesn't have anyone else." Grace closed her eyes. "I understand, Sarah. I'm really sorry, dear. If it were anything else, it's okay. Take care of your sister." Grace hung up and looked at Lily. The little girl had just discovered that her 2 favorite dolls fit perfectly in the toy house. "Mommy, look! Barbie and Anna can live together." "That's great, my love." Grace tried to think of alternatives. She had no family in the city. She'd moved here when she found out she was pregnant, wanting a fresh start, far from everything. She had no close friends. Sarah was practically the only person she trusted with Lily. She glanced at the clock, 6:50. She needed to leave the house in half an hour to get to work on time. What would she do? She couldn't miss work. She'd already missed 2 days the past few weeks when Lily had a fever. The first time, her supervisor, Mrs. Henderson, was understanding. The second time, she'd made it clear that any more absences could result in termination. "Cleaning staff are easy to replace, Grace," she had said in her clipped tone. "There's a line of people waiting for jobs." Grace couldn't afford to lose her job. It was her only source of income, the only way to pay rent, buy food and clothe Lily. A wild idea started forming in her mind. What if she took Lily to work? The Whitmore Global building was huge, 40 floors. She was sure there were empty rooms where she could keep Lily hidden for a few hours, just until the end of her shift. It was far too risky. If they found out, she'd be finished. But she had no choice. "Lily, come here, sweetheart." The girl dropped her dolls and ran into her mother's arms. "Today you're going on a very special trip with me." Lily's blue eyes sparkled with curiosity. "What trip?" "You're going to see the building where I work, but it's our special secret, okay?" "A secret, like in the movies?" Despite her worry, Grace smiled. "Yes, like in the movies. You'll stay in a special room, very quietly, while I work. Then we'll go home together." "Can I take Ted?" Lily asked, pointing to her teddy bear. "Of course you can." Grace packed a backpack with everything that might keep Lily busy for hours, coloring books, crayons, small toys, Teddy, sandwiches, juice, cookies, and fruit. She also brought a small blanket in case Lily wanted to nap. "Now listen carefully, Lily. In the building where I work, there are important rules. You have to stay exactly where I leave you and cannot leave that place. Understand?" "Why?" "Because you could get lost. It's a really big building with lots of people. If you get lost, I won't be able to find you." Lily gave a serious nod. "I don't want to get lost." "Then you'll stay in the room I choose, right?" "Right." The ride downtown never felt so long. Grace was nervous, checking and rechecking she had everything in Lily's backpack. Lily was excited, gazing out the bus window, commenting on cars and buildings. "Mommy, that building is really tall." "It is. But the one where I work is even taller." "Really? Taller than the clouds?" "Almost," Grace laughed, trying to hide her anxiety. When they got off the bus in front of Whitmore Global, Lily gaped. "Wow, it's really, really big." The steel and glass tower rose toward the sky like a mountain. Grace always felt small next to it, but now, with Lily by her side, the feeling was even stronger. "Come on, sweetheart." They entered through the employee's entrance. Mr. Martinez, the security guard, was at his post as usual, a friendly man in his 50s who always greeted Grace with a smile. "Good morning, Grace." He paused when he saw Lily. "Well, who's this little princess?" Grace felt her cheeks heat. "Good morning, Mr. Martinez. This is my daughter, Lily. Her school closed today because of a problem, and I had no one to watch her." Mr. Martinez knelt to Lily's eye level. "Hi, Lily, that's a lovely name. How old are you?" Lily held up 4 fingers. "4? 4 years old? You're already such a big girl." Mr. Martinez stood up and looked at Grace with understanding. He had 3 children of his own and knew how hard parenting could be. "Grace, you know you're not allowed to bring a child to work." "I know, Mr. Martinez. It's just for today. I promise she'll stay quiet." He glanced around, making sure no one else was around. "I get your situation. I've been there. But if anyone finds out, they won't. I'll find a safe place for her to stay." Mr. Martinez hesitated, then sighed. "Just for today, Grace. And be careful, okay? If Mrs. Henderson finds out—" "Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Thank you so much." Grace took Lily's hand and they headed for the elevator. Others joined them, executives in expensive suits and serious faces. Lily stayed quiet, fascinated by everything. They got off on the 35th floor. Grace knew it well. This was where she spent most of her shift. The corridor was empty. Most employees arrived after 8. Grace walked down the hallway, checking the rooms. She needed a discreet spot where no one would bother Lily. At the end of the corridor was a small meeting room rarely used. Grace had the key because she was responsible for cleaning that floor. She opened the door and peeked inside. Perfect. A simple room with a round table, 6 chairs, and a window overlooking the city. There was a small side table in the corner where Grace could set up Lily's things. "Here we go, Lily. This is your special room today." Lily went in and looked around curiously. "It's pretty. Mommy, I can see the city through the window." "Yes, you can. But remember our talk. You're not allowed to leave this room." Grace spread Lily's toys on the table, arranged the snacks on a chair, and laid the blanket on another chair in case Lily wanted to rest. Teddy stayed in her daughter's arms. "You have everything you need. Food, toys, Teddy. If you need anything super important, call my name, okay? But only if it's really, really important." "Okay, Mummy. I'm going to color and play with Teddy." Grace kissed Lily's forehead. "You're such a good girl. I'll come back soon to check on you." She left the room and closed the door carefully. She took a deep breath, hoping this crazy plan would work. Work began as usual. Grace grabbed her cleaning cart and started her routine. She cleaned the first few offices, emptied trash cans, wiped down furniture. But every 15 minutes, she made an excuse to pass by Lily's room. On her first check, Lily was sitting at the table, coloring a picture. "All good, my love?" "Yep. Mommy, I'm drawing our home." The second time, Lily was playing with Teddy, making up a story. "Teddy's hungry, but I told him he has to wait until snack time," Grace smiled. "That's good. Keep having fun." But on the third check, at 10 in the morning, the room was empty. Grace's blood ran cold. The backpack was still there, toys scattered on the table, Teddy on a chair, but Lily was gone. "Lily," she called softly, not wanting to make too much noise. "Lily, where are you?" Silence. Grace left the room and looked down the hallway. Empty. She ran to the nearest women's restroom. Also empty. Panic set in. Where could Lily have gone? The building was huge. She could be anywhere. Grace began searching floor by floor. She checked the 36th floor, nothing. The 34th floor, no sign. Meanwhile, 3 floors up on the 38th floor, a very important meeting was underway. It was Whitmore Global's monthly board meeting. 12 men in immaculate suits sat around a long mahogany table, discussing numbers, strategies, and the company's future. Ethan Whitmore sat at the head of the table. At 32, he was the company's vice president and the son of its founder, Robert Whitmore. Tall, dark hair perfectly trimmed, piercing blue eyes. A Harvard graduate who spoke 3 languages and was hailed by business magazines as one of the country's most promising young executives. Third quarter figures show a solid 15% growth compared to the same period last year, reported James Morrison, the CFO. Ethan flipped through the reports in front of him, taking occasional notes. The meeting followed the usual pattern: figures, projections, strategies. "And what about the Asian market?" another director asked. "We have very positive prospects for next year," Ethan replied. "We plan to expand." Right then, the conference room door opened. A little blonde girl with pigtails walked in. She wore a pink floral dress and white sneakers, carried a brown teddy bear, and looked around curiously, without a trace of fear. 12 men stopped speaking at once. Everyone stared at the child, baffled. "How did a child get in here?" mumbled the HR director. Lily walked right up to the table, her tiny footsteps echoing in the sudden hush, and stopped directly across from Ethan. She looked straight at him. Ethan felt something odd stir inside him. Those big blue eyes looked strangely familiar. The shape of her face, the tilt of her head. "Hi," Lily said in her sweet, childlike voice. "Hi," Ethan replied automatically, unable to look away. Lily studied him for a moment, as if memorizing each detail of his face. Then, with the pure spontaneity of a 4-year-old who has just recognized someone, she said, "You're my daddy. Mommy cries every night looking at your picture." A deafening silence fell. The 12 men froze, as though someone had paused time. A few opened their mouths, but nothing came out. Ethan felt the world spin. His face went pale, and his hands trembled imperceptibly on the table. He opened and closed his mouth several times, trying to form words that simply wouldn't come. I don't, that's not... At that exact moment, Grace burst into the room, out of breath and frantic. She'd raced up 3 flights of stairs searching for Lily. "Lily!" she cried, running inside. All eyes turned to Grace. She wore the blue cleaning uniform, face flushed with panic, hair undone from sprinting around. Grace snatched Lily into her arms, holding her tight. "I'm so sorry," she muttered, unable to look anyone in the eye. This was a mistake. Ethan was still speechless, staring at Grace as though seeing a ghost. There was something about that face, those frightened brown eyes. Grace turned to leave, Lily in her arms. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Lily asked, confused. "I found Daddy just like you always said." Grace didn't reply. She ran from the room, heart shattered, feeling the scorching weight of 12 stairs on her back. Inside, those 12 men remained silent, eyes locked on Ethan Whitmore, who sat unmoving in his chair, gaze fixed on the door through which Grace and the little girl had disappeared. The meeting was over, but for Ethan, something far bigger had just begun. Grace spent the rest of the day trying to be invisible again. She pushed her cleaning cart down the halls, head low, avoiding eye contact. Her hands trembled every time she emptied a trash can or wiped down a desk. Lily was back in that small conference room, happily playing with Teddy as though nothing had happened. To her, it had just been an adventure. She had no idea why Mommy was so upset. "Mommy, can I have another cookie?" "Yes, sweetheart." Grace tried to sound normal, but her voice shook. Every noise in the hallway made her heart race. At any moment, someone could come to fire her or worse. The hours dragged on. Grace cleaned restrooms, arranged offices, wiped down furniture, operating on autopilot. All she could think about was getting out of there as soon as possible. At 5 o'clock, with her shift nearly over, Grace packed up her cleaning supplies for the last time. Maybe she wouldn't even come back tomorrow. They were probably deciding her fate already. She walked into the small room to retrieve Lily. "Let's go, my love. Time to go home." "Already? But I was still playing." "We can play at home." Grace quickly gathered the toys into Lily's backpack. She wanted to leave before anyone could stop them. With Lily on her hip, she made her way to the elevators. The corridor was busy with employees heading out for the day, men and women in suits, chatting and laughing, making after-work plans. Grace tried to blend in, just another person eager to go home. She reached the elevator and pressed the button. The doors slid open. "Grace!" She turned. Ethan Whitmore stood just a few feet away, alone. He'd taken off his jacket and loosened his tie, looking tired. Grace felt her knees go weak. Lily lifted her head from Grace's shoulder. "Hey, it's you again." Grace hushed her daughter gently, pressing Lily's face into her shoulder. "Mr. Whitmore, could we talk?" It wasn't really a question. It was more a statement of fact. Grace glanced around. A few other employees waited for the elevator, watching curiously. "I need to take my daughter home. This won't take long." Grace hesitated. She had no choice. She nodded. Ethan looked around as well. "My office." They walked silently to the 36th floor. Grace had never been in Ethan's private office. It was a spacious room with an enormous dark wooden desk, shelves filled with books, and a window with a sweeping view of the city. "Have a seat," Ethan said, gesturing to the chairs in front of his desk. Grace perched on the edge of one, Lily still on her lap. The little girl gazed around, impressed by the large space. "Your office is really big," Lily commented. Ethan gave a faint smile. "Yes, it is." He sat in a chair next to them, not behind his desk. The three remained quiet for a moment. Grace could hear her own heartbeat. "She's my daughter," Ethan finally said. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. Grace held Lily tighter. "I can explain. She's my daughter," Ethan repeated, this time looking directly at Grace. "I remember you." Grace closed her eyes. Of course he remembered. How could he forget? "Lily, sweetie, can you play on the floor with Teddy, Mommy, and Mommy needs to talk to this gentleman." "Okay." Grace set Lily on the floor and pulled a few toys from the backpack. The little girl sat on the rug and began to play, humming softly. 5 years ago," Grace began, not meeting his eyes. "It was 5 years ago." Ethan nodded. "I remember the company's year-end party. You were working catering. Just a temporary job. I needed extra money." Grace recalled it all vividly. She'd been hired to serve drinks at Whitmore Global's holiday celebration, a fancy event on the top floor of the building with panoramic views of the city. Ethan had arrived late to the party, looking tired and stressed. He stood alone in a corner, sipping a drink while everyone else mingled. Grace had approached to offer another drink, and they started talking. "You were different that night," Grace said quietly. "Not like the other executives. I just argued with my father about the direction of the company, my life." She remembered. They'd talked for hours about unfulfilled dreams, family pressure, unspoken expectations. Ethan had confessed feeling trapped in a life he hadn't chosen. Grace had confided her desire for more than just temporary gigs. "We ended up at my place," Grace continued in a low voice, "a tiny apartment at the time. "I know," Ethan said gently. "I remember everything." It had been a night unlike any other for both of them. Not just physical, a genuine connection formed between two lost souls. "The next morning you mentioned your wife," Grace said. Ethan closed his eyes. "Vanessa. You said your marriage was arranged, that you didn't love each other, but it was important for the family's business alliance." Grace recalled the sting she'd felt. Ethan had been honest about his situation, but it hadn't made it any easier. "I said I understood," Grace went on. "I told you I didn't expect anything, that it was just one night." "But it wasn't just one night," Ethan murmured, glancing at Lily. "No, 2 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant." Grace had been shocked. 21 years old, alone, no family nearby. She'd weighed all options, but the moment she saw the first ultrasound, she knew she wanted the baby. "Why didn't you tell me?" Grace looked at him. "You had a wife, a family, a position in the company, and me, I was no one, a temporary waitress." "That didn't matter." "Of course it did. Your family would never accept a scandal like that. The heir to Whitmore Global has an affair with catering staff. It would have been huge news. Ethan remained silent, knowing she was right. Besides, Grace continued, I needed a job. Whitmore Global's cleaning contractor was one of the best in the city. I got hired 6 months after Lily was born. If I had told the truth, they never would have hired me. So you stayed silent. I survived. I made sure my daughter had food and a roof. That's all. Grace glanced at Lily, still absorbed in her imaginary game with Teddy. Over these 4 years, I caught glimpses of you in the corridors, Grace said. You walked past me as if I were invisible, and I let you. It was easier that way. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. Nobody looks at the cleaning staff. Ethan leaned forward in his chair. Grace, if I'd known, what would you have done? Left your wife, publicly admitted you had a fling with an employee, destroy your family's reputation. Grace spoke without anger, just realism. I made the choice I thought best, she said. You went on with your life, I went on with mine, and Lily grew up happy and healthy. But she knows about me, Grace sighed. Lily always asked about her dad. I couldn't lie outright, so I told her he was an important man who lived far away. And the photo, Grace blushed. I cut your picture out of a business magazine. Lily kept asking how her daddy looked. I showed her the picture and said maybe one day she'd meet you. That's why she recognized me today. Yes, that's why she said what she said in the meeting. To her you were real. To me you were just the answer to her questions. They fell silent for a few moments. Lily continued playing, unaware of the gravity in the adults' conversation. What do you want now? Grace finally asked. I want to know my daughter. She met his gaze. Are you sure? If you come into her life, you can't leave whenever you're tired. She's not a toy. I know that. You have a wife, a well-structured life, a reputation to uphold. Those are my problems. Grace studied his face. She saw determination, but also fear. Mr. Whitmore, Ethan, he corrected. Call me Ethan. Ethan, she repeated. Lily doesn't understand complicated family issues or social pressure. She only understands love and attention. If you want to be in her life, you need to be a real father. I want to try. Grace glanced at Lily, who was making Teddy talk to an imaginary doll. I never asked you for anything, Grace said slowly. No money, no favors, no recognition. All I wanted was to raise my daughter in peace. Ethan nodded. I understand. But now you know the truth, and the choice is yours. Grace stood and called Lily. Let's go, sweetheart. Time to go home. Already? But I was telling Ted a super cool story. You can finish it at home. Grace slung the backpack over her shoulder. Ethan rose as well. Grace? She stopped at the door and turned around. Thank you for telling me the truth. She nodded and walked out, holding Lily's hand. Ethan was left alone in the office, gazing out at the city below. His life had changed in mere minutes. He had a daughter, a 4-year-old who had called him Daddy. Now he had to figure out what to do with that knowledge. Ethan was still in his office when the phone rang. It was 7 in the evening and the building was nearly empty. He'd been replaying his conversation with Grace, trying to process it all. Ethan, come to my office. Now. Robert Whitmore's voice allowed no argument. Ethan hung up and sighed, knowing this was inevitable. The president's office was on the top floor, twice as large as Ethan's, with an imposing decor that made it clear who was in charge. Robert sat behind a massive desk, hands clasped over an open folder. Close the door, he ordered without lifting his eyes from the papers. Ethan obeyed and approached. His father, at 62, was still an impressive figure. Grey hair neatly combed, an impeccable suit, perfect posture. He had built Whitmore Global from the ground up and never let anyone forget it. Sit! Ethan sat in one of the chairs in front of the desk. Robert finally looked up, his jaw clenched. Morrison told me what happened in today's meeting. James Morrison, the CFO, had been there when Lily walked in. It was only natural he'd report to Robert. Dad. Be quiet, Robert interrupted, raising a hand. I'll speak first, then you'll explain how you plan to fix this mess. He stood and walked to the window, his back to Ethan. His voice was cold, controlled. Her child walked into a board meeting and said, in front of 12 people, that you're her father. The mother is a cleaning employee. That's bad enough. Ethan stayed silent, knowing Robert wasn't finished. Worse, Robert continued, still facing the window. Some directors are already making jokes in the hallways, saying the Whitmore men have exotic tastes, that we like to toy with the help. Robert spun to face him. This must not leave the building, Ethan. It cannot reach the press. Do you understand how serious this is? I do, Dad. Then explain how this happened. Ethan took a deep breath. Her name is Grace. We met 5 years ago at the company's year-end party. She was with the catering team. And you slept with her? Yes. Robert shook his head in disappointment. You were married, Ethan. Vanessa comes from a respected family. How could you be so reckless? My marriage to Vanessa was never about love, Dad. You arranged it for business reasons. So what? You had responsibilities, a name to uphold. Ethan stood. Grace got pregnant. She never told me. She raised the child alone for 4 years. Raised the child alone, and now she shows up, wanting to take advantage, obviously, Robert said with contempt. It's clear what she wants. Money, recognition, maybe a lifetime pension. It's not like that. Of course it is. Women like that are all the same. They wait for the right moment to appear with their stories. Ethan felt anger boil in his chest. She's been working here for 4 years, Dad. If she wanted to extort us, she would have done it long ago. Then why now? Because the child appeared on her own. Grace tried to hide her, but the daycare was closed, and she had no babysitter. Robert returned to his desk and sank into his chair. It doesn't matter how it happened. What matters is how we fix it. Fix it? You'll deny everything. The child is confused, doesn't know what she's talking about. The mother is a scammer trying to blackmail us. Ethan stared at his father in shock. I won't deny that I have a daughter. Yes, you will, and I'll make sure this woman never shows her face around here again. How? Robert pulled a file from his desk. Grace Silver, 26, employed by the cleaning contractor for 4 years, rents a room in a boarding house in the West End with her daughter. Ethan realized his father had already done some digging into Grace, probably right after Morrison's report. I'll have her fired tomorrow, Robert said, flipping through the pages. For misconduct, bringing a child into the workplace. You can't do that. I can and I will. Then I'll make sure she can't find decent work anywhere else in town. A few strategic phone calls will do it. Ethan sprang up. Dad, you're talking about ruining someone's life. I'm talking about protecting our family, Robert replied, standing as well. Our reputation, our company. And the child, you're also going to ruin a 4-year-old's life. Robert shrugged. The child's not our problem. She's my daughter. Prove it, Robert said coolly. Where are the DNA tests, the birth records, the evidence? Ethan fell silent for a moment, then shook his head. I don't need proof. Just look at her. Nonsense. Any blonde child can look like any blonde man if someone wants to see a resemblance. You know she's my daughter, Dad. Just like I do. Robert stepped closer, anger seething in his eyes. Listen carefully, Ethan. You're going to deny this story. Say you've never met that woman, that she's just trying to extort us. What if I refuse? Then you're out of the company. For good. Father and son glared at each other. Ethan saw the unyielding resolve in Robert's eyes. It wasn't an empty threat. So you disown your own son? If that's what it takes to protect everything I've built, yes. Ethan took a few steps around the office, his hands in his pockets. He thought of Grace, quietly working these 4 years, of Lily, playing alone while her mother worked to make ends meet. She never asked for anything, he said at last. What? Grace never asked for money, acknowledgement, or help. She raised the child alone, not bothering anyone. That makes her more dangerous, Robert insisted. Women like that are calculating, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But she gave me a daughter, Ethan continued, ignoring his father's insult. And I want to know her. You have Vanessa. You two can have children whenever you want. Lily isn't a substitute for some future child. She's already here. And she called me Dad. Robert returned to his seat, voice turning even colder. If you keep up this nonsense, Ethan, you'll lose everything, your position, your social standing, the community's respect. For what? To play daddy with a kid born out of wedlock. Ethan clenched his fists. Don't talk about my daughter like that. She's not your daughter, officially, and she never will be, if I have a say. You can't stop me. Yes, I can. I'll have her mother fired tomorrow and destroy her reputation. I'll make life so hard for them that they'll have no choice but to leave town. Why hurt innocent people? That's how you protect a family, Ethan, with a firm hand. Your grandfather did it. I do it, and you should learn to do it too. Ethan stared at the man on the other side of the desk. All his life, he'd admired his father's strength and determination. But now he saw only coldness and cruelty. No, he said simply. What did you say? I said no. I won't deny I have a daughter, and I won't let you ruin their lives. Robert rose slowly, face red with anger. So you've chosen your side? I have. Fine. As of tomorrow, you're no longer employed here. And Grace Silva is out too. If you fire Grace, I'll go to the press. I'll tell them everything, what you're doing, how you treat employees. It was a bluff, and Robert knew it. But he also knew Ethan could be impulsive when enraged. You wouldn't. I would. I'll do anything to protect my daughter. They locked eyes for a long moment. Finally, Robert sank back in his chair. You have 24 hours to end this, Ethan, one way or another. Either you fix this or I will. Ethan walked to the door. He paused before leaving. You're going to fire Grace anyway, aren't you? Robert didn't answer, but his silence said it all. Then I know what I have to do, Ethan said, stepping out. Robert stayed behind, gazing at the closed door. He knew his son well enough to realize he'd lost this battle, though perhaps not the war. He picked up the phone and dialed. Mrs. Henderson, this is Robert Whitmore. I need you to terminate Grace Silva tomorrow morning. Yes, for misconduct. He hung up and turned back to the window. If Ethan wanted to play hero, so be it, but not at the Whitmore family's expense. Ethan arrived home at 9. The mansion was quiet, only a few lights on downstairs. He parked in the garage and remained in the car for a moment, steeling himself. He knew confronting Vanessa was inevitable. The house was far too big for just 2 people, 12 bedrooms, a dining hall for 20, a library, an office, a pool. Everything perfect, everything planned, everything empty, just like their marriage. Ethan entered through the kitchen door. Vanessa sat at the table drinking tea. She still wore the blue dress she'd donned for a business dinner earlier. Her blonde hair was in a tight bun, makeup flawless even after a long day. She didn't look up when he walked in. Hi, Ethan said, setting his keys on the counter. Hi. Her voice was neutral, but Ethan knew her well enough to sense the tension. He poured himself a glass of water and sat across from her. How was dinner with the ladies from the club? Vanessa finally met his gaze, her blue eyes cold as ice. Interesting. Very interesting. Ethan's stomach knotted. What do you mean? She placed her teacup down with an audible clink in the silent kitchen. Margaret Morrison was there, James's wife. Ethan closed his eyes. Of course. The CFO had spilled everything to his wife, and Margaret was the city's biggest gossip. Vanessa. Margaret said a child walked into a board meeting today, a 4-year-old girl, and she said, in front of a dozen people, that you're her father. Ethan kept quiet. There was nothing to say. Margaret loved telling the story. She said the mother is a cleaning lady, a janitor at your building. Vanessa walked to the window, her back rigid. At first I laughed, said it was impossible, just a misunderstanding, that my husband would never do such a thing. She whirled around. But then I saw Margaret's face. She wasn't joking, she was telling me the truth. Ethan stood. For Vanessa, I can explain. Explain. Her voice rose an octave. Explain how you slept with a cleaning lady, how you publicly humiliated me. It wasn't like that. Then what was it? Please, enlighten me. How my husband managed to father a child by a janitor without my knowledge. Ethan took a steadying breath. It happened 5 years ago, at the holiday party. We were going through a rough patch. Rough patch, Vanessa laughed bitterly. Our marriage was always rough, Ethan. That's not an excuse for you to sleep around. It wasn't just anyone. It was Grace, and it wasn't just sex. Vanessa looked as if he'd slapped her, Oh, so it was love. How romantic. The prince and the maid. Don't be sarcastic. I'll be whatever I want, Vanessa shouted. You cheated on me, Ethan. You humiliated me, and now you want me to be understanding. She paced the kitchen, hands trembling with rage. You know what Margaret said? She said the entire city's buzzing about it. All the men at the club are making jokes. Ethan tried to approach, but Vanessa stepped back. 5 years, Ethan. You've known for 5 years that you have a daughter, and you never told me. I didn't know. Grace never told me she was pregnant. And you believe that? That she could hide a pregnancy for 5 years? Ethan hesitated. Yes, I do. Why? Because she's some saint. Because she's not like other women who chase rich men. Because she's worked in the same building for 4 years and never asked me for anything. If she wanted money, she could have demanded it ages ago. Vanessa stopped pacing and faced him. You're defending her. I am. You're defending a cleaning lady against your own wife. I'm defending the mother of my child. Vanessa was silent for a few seconds. Her voice dropped lower, more dangerous. You've ruined everything, Ethan. Our marriage, our reputation, our standing. All for a janitor. Ethan met her eyes. Our marriage was always a facade, Vanessa. You know that. We never truly loved each other. That doesn't matter. We had an arrangement, a contract, a partnership. But with her... Ethan paused, searching for the right words. With Grace, a life was created. A child. And that child called me Dad. Vanessa looked at him like she no longer recognized him. So you chose her. I chose my daughter. Same thing. Vanessa stormed out of the kitchen without another word. Ethan heard her footsteps on the stairs, then a door slamming upstairs. He stayed alone in the kitchen, staring at the teacup Vanessa had left behind. It was still warm. Over the next hour, Ethan heard movements upstairs, hurried footsteps, drawers opening and closing. Vanessa was packing. Around 11, she descended with 2 large suitcases. She'd changed into jeans and a simple top, her hair down, no makeup. She looked younger, more vulnerable. Ethan waited in the living room. I'm staying at my sister's place, Vanessa said from the doorway. For now. Vanessa. No, she raised her hand. I don't want apologies or excuses. You made your choice. I've made mine. She grabbed her car keys from the hall table. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow about the divorce. Ethan stood. Are you sure? She looked at him one last time, her eyes dry, her voice cold and determined. Absolutely. You humiliated me publicly. I won't ever forgive that. Vanessa, you chose a different life, one with a child I don't even know. You chose a woman who isn't from our world. She opened the door and walked out, suitcases in tow. Ethan followed her to the entry. I hope it's worth it, Vanessa said, stowing her luggage in the trunk. I hope this new family of yours makes up for all you've lost. Vanessa, she climbed into her car and lowered the window. Goodbye, Ethan. The car disappeared into the night, taking 5 years of marriage with it. 5 years of social events, formal dinners, empty conversations, forced smiles. Ethan stood in the doorway, staring at the empty street. Behind him, the mansion felt bigger and quieter than ever. He thought of Grace and Lily, sleeping in that small boarding room. He thought of their simple life, their honest love. Vanessa was right about one thing. He had made his choice. Now he had to face the consequences. For the first time in years, Ethan wasn't sorry about a decision he'd made. He went straight to his home office and turned on his computer, beginning to type up a resignation letter. If his father wanted war, then war it would be. But first, he had to find Grace. He had to make sure she and Lily were okay. The night would be long, but for the first time, Ethan knew exactly what needed to be done. Ethan spent the rest of the night in his home office, searching the company's files. As vice president, he had access to the records of all outsourced staff. It didn't take long to find Grace Silver. Address, Rosewood Boarding House, Maple Street, Unit 247, Room 12. It was in a part of town he didn't know well. Places like that weren't part of his world of mansions and exclusive clubs. By 7 the next morning, Ethan was in his car, navigating the narrow streets of that humble neighborhood. He passed small shops, simple houses, children on their way to school, a world so different from his. The Rosewood boarding house was a 3-story building painted a faded yellow. The facade needed repair but looked tidy enough. Ethan parked and studied the place for a moment. A sign read, "Rooms by the week or month, shared bathrooms, communal kitchen." Ethan had never stepped foot in such a place. He couldn't imagine life in a single room with a 4-year-old. He got out of his car and entered. The corridor smelled of disinfectant and homemade cooking. Voices drifted from the shared kitchen, along with the sound of a TV somewhere. He climbed to the 2nd floor and found room 12. He paused, took a deep breath, and knocked softly. "Just a minute," came Grace's voice from inside. He heard footsteps, and the door opened. Grace stood there in a simple t-shirt and jeans, holding a wet garment in her hands. "Ethan." Her eyes widened in shock. "What are you doing here?" "May I come in? I need to talk to you." Grace hesitated, glanced down the corridor, then opened the door wider. The room was exactly as Ethan had imagined, small and basic but organized. 2 beds, a wardrobe, a little table. Clothes hung to dry in a wash basin on the floor. Grace had clearly been doing laundry. Lily was on the floor, drawing in a notebook, wearing pink pajamas with unicorns. She was humming softly as she colored. When she saw Ethan, her face lit up. "Hi, did you come to visit me?" "Hi, Lily," Ethan said, trying to sound casual. "I came to talk to your mum." Grace closed the door, still looking uneasy. "How did you find my address?" "Company records. I'm sorry. I know it's invasive." Grace folded her arms. "Why are you here, Ethan?" He glanced at Lily, who had returned to her drawing, then back at Grace. "I came to apologize." Grace frowned. "Apologize for what?" "For your termination." She went pale. "How do you know I was fired?" "My father, he ordered it last night." Grace sank onto the bed. "I knew this was coming. I knew since yesterday." "Grace, No." She stopped him with a hand. "You don't need to say sorry. I took the risk when I brought Lily. It's my fault." Ethan stepped closer. "It's not your fault, it's mine. For my silence, my absence." Grace looked confused. "I should have been around for you both. I should have known I had a child. I should have helped." "Ethan, we talked about this yesterday. You didn't know. But now I do, and I won't let my father's decisions hurt you anymore." Ethan pulled an envelope from inside his jacket. It was thick and white. "What's this?" Grace asked. "The compensation you deserve for 4 years of service, your severance, everything you're owed." Grace stared at the envelope. "I don't want your charity. It's not charity. It's restitution. It's what's right. I can't accept." "Why not?" Grace stood and walked to the small window overlooking the courtyard. "Because if I accept, I'll owe you, and I don't want to owe anyone anything." Ethan placed the envelope on the little table. "You don't owe me. If anything, I owe you." "You don't owe me anything." "I do. 4 years of child support, 4 years of help, 4 years of being a father." Grace turned. "Ethan, Lily grew up without a dad because of circumstances, and also because I was ignorant. If I'd been more attentive, I might have found out sooner." Lily stopped coloring and looked at them. "Mommy, why are you talking so serious?" Grace forced a smile. "It's nothing, sweetheart. Go on drawing." Ethan's gaze fell on Lily, scribbling away. She'd drawn a house with 3 figures outside, 2 big, 1 small. Without overthinking, Ethan sat on the floor beside her. The girl watched him curiously. "Can I play with you, Lily?" Her face lit up. "Sure. Can you help me color?" "Of course." Lily handed him a blue crayon. "You color the sky." "I'm coloring the grass green." Ethan took the crayon, something he hadn't done in decades, and carefully shaded the sky. Lily observed, nodding approval. "You color really well," she praised. "Mommy does too." "Look." Lily flipped through her notebook, revealing other drawings. Flowers, animals, people, all with the imperfect but heartfelt style of a 4-year-old. "They're beautiful," Ethan said sincerely. "Thank you. Want me to draw you?" Ethan glanced at Grace, who stood watching quietly. "If you want to." Lily picked a blank sheet, studying Ethan's face intently as she worked. Tongue out in concentration, she sketched. "Done," she said, showing her masterpiece. A tall man with dark hair and a big smile. Nothing like Ethan physically, but something special shone in that childlike drawing. "It's perfect," Ethan said. "You can keep it," Lily offered. "Really? I can." "Sure, so you won't forget me." A lump rose in Ethan's throat. "I could never forget you, Lily." "Why?" He glanced at Grace, who nodded gently. "Because you're very special to me." Lily smiled, returning to her crayons. Ethan stayed seated on the floor, helping her color. For the first time in years, he felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. Grace quietly observed. She saw how Ethan listened attentively to Lily's stories, answered her questions patiently, and smiled whenever she laughed. After about an hour, Lily started yawning. "I think somebody's getting sleepy," Grace said. "I'm not sleepy," Lily insisted, but her eyes were heavy. "How about a nap?" Ethan suggested. "Then I can come back later to play more." "You promise?" Ethan looked at Grace, who nodded. "I promise." Grace helped Lily into her small bed. The girl hugged Teddy and closed her eyes, asleep in minutes. Ethan and Grace stepped outside to the building's tiny back porch. There were a few old chairs and a small communal space. "Thank you," Grace said. "For what?" "For being kind to her. For not running away when she asked you to play." Ethan smiled faintly. "She's amazing, Grace. How did you raise such a sweet girl on your own?" "You do what you have to, when you love someone." They sat quietly, listening to neighborhood sounds, kids playing, a radio from somewhere, life carrying on around them. "So what happens now?" Grace asked. "Now I want to be part of her life, if you'll let me." Grace eyed him. "Are you sure? Parenting is no joke, Ethan." "It's a real commitment." "I know, and I'm ready." She nodded slowly. "Then we need to talk about how this will work. Rules, boundaries, what's best for Lily." "Deal." Ethan held up the drawing Lily had done of him. As simple as it was, it felt like the most precious gift he'd ever received. For the first time in his life, he realized he'd found what he hadn't known he was missing. 3 days after that first meeting, Ethan returned to the boarding house. He brought a box of colorful building blocks for Lily. Nothing too fancy, just bright pieces he thought she'd enjoy. "You got a present for me," Lily exclaimed, eyes shining when she saw the box. "I did. I thought we could play together." Grace watched from the small table where she was prepping lunch. Ethan sat on the floor and opened the box. Lily dropped to her knees beside him, eager to see what was inside. "This is cool. Can I build a house?" "You can build anything you want." Lily began stacking the blocks, creating a tower more than a house. Ethan didn't correct her or suggest improvements. He just passed the pieces as she asked for them. "Done. Does it look pretty?" "It's beautiful," Ethan said honestly. And it was, maybe not in its shape, but in Lily's proud smile. That was just the first of many visits. Ethan started showing up at the boarding house 3 or 4 times a week, always in the late afternoon. No set schedule, no formal plan, he simply came. On his second visit, he brought storybooks. Lily curled up in his lap while he read about princesses, dragons, and far-off lands. She constantly interrupted to ask questions or comment. "Why doesn't the princess fight the dragon herself?" "Maybe she wants help," Ethan suggested. "I'd fight it alone." "I'm brave." "You really are." On the third visit, Lily asked him to invent a story. Ethan hesitated. He'd never done that, but he began speaking about a brave girl with a magical teddy bear who went on grand adventures. "Is the teddy like my Ted?" Lily asked, clutching her plush. "Exactly like Ted." "And is the girl like me?" "Very much," Ethan smiled. Soon, Ethan's stories became part of their routine. Lily eagerly awaited each new chapter in the saga of the brave girl and her magical teddy. He discovered he had more imagination than he'd thought, Grace observed quietly. She noticed Ethan wasn't trying to wow Lily with expensive gifts or big promises. He was simply present, listening, caring, genuinely interested in her world. "Do you want to see my drawing?" Lily would ask as soon as he arrived. "Of course I do." And Ethan truly looked, asking questions about her color choices or the characters she invented. Lily blossomed under his attention. On his 5th visit it happened. They were playing with Lily's dolls, Ethan doing silly voices for the male characters, while Lily cared for the mom dolls. "Daddy, can you make Ken's voice deeper?" Lily asked. Ethan froze. Grace, folding laundry nearby, also froze. Lily kept playing, completely natural. For her, it wasn't a big moment. Ethan was the man who played with her, told her stories, showed up every day. Of course he was Daddy. Ethan swallowed hard and used a deeper voice. "How's this?" "Perfect, Daddy." Grace and Ethan locked eyes over Lily's head. Grace had tears, but they were tears of something like relief, as if a missing piece had finally found its place. From that day on, Lily called Ethan Daddy freely. It wasn't forced or staged, it simply happened. "Daddy, can you come tomorrow?" "Daddy, do you like chocolate ice cream?" "Daddy, Mommy said you have a really big house." Ethan quickly adapted to being called Daddy. In fact, he preferred it to Mr. Whitmore or Vice President. The weeks rolled by. Ethan rearranged his schedule to have more free time. He cancelled unnecessary meetings, delegated tasks, shifted priorities. For the first time, something was more important than work. One Thursday afternoon, Ethan arrived to find Lily drawing at the small table, singing a song she'd learned at school. Grace was sewing a tear in Lily's clothes. "Hi, Daddy," Lily said without looking up from her sketch. "Hey, Princess, what you drawing?" "I'm drawing our family. Look." She held up the paper. 3 people. 1 woman with brown hair, 1 tall man, and 1 small girl. All smiling, holding hands. "It's beautiful," Ethan said, feeling his chest tighten. "Can you put it on your fridge at your house?" Ethan had never pinned anything to his sleek stainless steel fridge, but he nodded. "Of course I can." He sat beside Lily, watching her draw another sheet, this time an entire little universe, houses, trees, animals, people. "This is Miss Sarah's house," Lily explained, drawing a small building. "And this is the park we're going to on Sunday." Ethan listened, struck by her vivid imagination. Lily continued to draw, creating stories for every piece she added. "And this is Daddy going to work," she said, drawing a small figure walking toward a tall building. "Why is Daddy going to work?" "So he can earn money to buy food for the family," Lily answered in the simple logic of a 4-year-old. Ethan chuckled. "Makes sense." When she finished, Lily put her crayons away and stood up. "Daddy, can we play dolls now?" "Sure." They sat on the floor, Lily organizing her dolls for a grand adventure. There were doll parents, a dollhouse, and a doll car. Ethan gave them all different voices, invented dialogues, and set up little plots. Grace stopped sewing to watch. Seeing Ethan, once a polished executive, sitting on the floor playing dolls with a 4-year-old was surreal, but it also felt incredibly natural. "Now the mom doll is making dinner for the family," Lily announced. "What's she cooking?" "Spaghetti. Everyone loves spaghetti." They played for another hour. Ethan never checked the time or his phone. He was fully there in the moment. When Lily began yawning, Grace declared it bath time. "Can Daddy stay for dinner?" Lily asked. Grace hesitated. Dinner was different from playing. It meant more closeness, more intimacy, a real step into their daily life. "If he wants to," Grace said. "I'd love to," Ethan replied. While Grace bathed Lily, Ethan waited in the small common area of the boarding house. Other tenants passed by, greeting him, making comments about how nice it was to see Lily with her dad. Ethan felt a bit uneasy, but also proud hearing people call him Lily's father. They had a simple dinner at the tiny table in the room, rice, beans, and chicken that Grace had cooked with care. Ethan ate every bite, genuinely appreciating it. "Mommy cooks really well," Lily noted. "She sure does," Ethan agreed. After dinner, Lily brushed her teeth, put on pajamas, and climbed into her small bed with Teddy. "Daddy, can you tell me a story?" Ethan glanced at Grace, who nodded. "Sure. Which one?" "The Brave Girl and the Magical Teddy." He sat on the edge of Lily's bed and began. She listened intently, asking questions, smiling at funny parts. Slowly, her eyelids drooped. "Daddy? Yes?" Lily paused her game with Teddy and stared into Ethan's eyes, her little face solemn. "It's nice when you come over. Mommy smiles more." Ethan felt his heart clench and expand all at once. He glanced at Grace, who stood by the wall, smiling softly. A real smile. "Really?" he asked, his voice thick. "Yes. Before you didn't come, and Mommy got sad sometimes. Now she's happy." Ethan couldn't respond right away. He had never realized his presence or absence could mean so much to anyone, especially these two people he had come to cherish so deeply. "I'm happy when I come here too," he finally managed. "Why?" "Because you two are special to me." Lily smiled and hugged Teddy closer. "Daddy, are you coming tomorrow?" "If you want me to." "I do." "Then I will." Lily closed her eyes, content. Within minutes, she was sound asleep. Ethan and Grace stepped out of the room quietly and returned to the little terrace with the old chairs. "Thank you," Grace repeated. "For what?" "For being here, for not giving up when things got tough." "Grace, did you think I would just abandon my daughter?" "I didn't know. A lot of men would. I'm not most men." Grace smiled. "No, you're not." They sat quietly for a while, listening to the nighttime sounds of the neighborhood. "She's wonderful," Ethan said at last. "How did you do it on your own?" Grace glanced at the window where Lily slept. "You do what you must when you love someone. But it couldn't have been easy." It wasn't. "There were nights I didn't know how I'd pay rent next month. Times Lily got sick and I had to wait hours at the free clinic because I couldn't afford private care." She paused, remembering. "I often felt lost, unsure if I was doing the right thing. You did an incredible job. I did what I could, but now she has a father. That changes everything. For the better, I hope." "Yes," Grace said softly. "For the better." In the days that followed, their new routine continued. Ethan arrived in the late afternoon, played with Lily, shared dinner, told bedtime stories. There was no more awkwardness. He was simply part of their daily lives now. On a Friday, Ethan walked in to find Lily sprawled on the floor with her dolls. She had built an entire little world. Houses made of books, roads made of tape, toy cars scattered everywhere. Grace was folding clothes on the bed but paused to watch. "Hi, Daddy. Look what I made." "Wow, that's an amazing city." Lily explained every detail. There was a hospital for injured dolls, a school where teddy bears learned to read, and a park for all the toys to play together. Ethan sat on the floor and listened, never interrupting or suggesting improvements. He simply enjoyed her enthusiasm. "Daddy, do you want to be the mayor of the city?" "What does the mayor do?" "Takes care of everyone and solves problems." "Then I'll do it." Grace smiled as she watched Ethan learn something many adults never do: how to simply be present, to follow a child's lead, to value the moment without controlling it. Lily hummed a little song from school while she played, her sweet voice filling the tiny space. Ethan listened as if it were the most beautiful melody he'd ever heard. After the song, Lily told a story with her dolls about a happy family in a magical city. "And the daddy of the family always came home at the end of the day," Lily narrated, moving a male doll toward a bookhouse. "And the mommy was happy, and the little girl was happy, and they all ate dinner together." Grace and Ethan exchanged a look. Lily was basically describing her own life, the life she was finally getting. The bond between the three of them grew daily. No one forced it. It was just honesty, care, and time spent together. Ethan discovered something he'd never realized he was missing. Grace found someone to share parenting. More than that, someone who loved her child as much as she did. And Lily. Lily finally had a daddy, someone who came over every day, who played with her, told her stories, and made her feel special. Someone who completed the family she'd drawn over and over again. 3 weeks went by since Ethan began visiting Lily regularly. 3 weeks of playtime, stories, and simple dinners in that cramped room. 3 weeks in which he learned what being a father truly meant. Robert Whitmore watched it all from a distance. He got reports from building security about Ethan leaving early, saw his distraction in meetings. One Monday morning, Robert summoned Ethan to his office. It was early, 7:30 a.m., and the building was nearly empty. "Close the door," Robert said, without looking up from his papers. Ethan did so and approached his father's massive desk. Robert looked as polished as ever, navy suit, silk tie, impeccably combed hair. But something in his posture hinted at tension. "Sit." Ethan sat. He knew this office well. He'd spent his childhood here, learning about business from Robert. He used to dream of one day sitting behind this very desk. Now, for the first time, the office felt foreign. "We need to settle this once and for all," Robert said finally, raising his eyes. "What do you mean?" "Don't pretend you don't know, Ethan. You've been visiting that woman and her child every day." Ethan wasn't surprised. He knew his father had ways of finding things out. "Grace has a name, Dad, and so does Lily. All I see are problems that need solving." Robert stood, walking to the window. The city sprawled below. Towers, roads, thousands of people starting another workday. "You know how long it took me to build all this?" he asked, and gesturing outside. 30 years. 32. I started with nothing. Just a 10 by 10 office and one employee. Worked 16-hour days for over a decade. Ethan had heard the story countless times. "I sacrificed time with your mother, gave up vacations, weekends, holidays, all to build something lasting." Robert turned to face him. "And now you want to throw it all away for some woman you slept with once?" "That's not how it is, Dad. It's exactly how it is. You're jeopardizing everything, the company's reputation, our social standing, our future." Ethan stood. "I'm putting my daughter first. She's not your responsibility. She's my daughter. Prove it. Where are the DNA tests, legal documents?" Ethan clenched his fists. "I don't need documents to know she's mine. In the real world, you do need proof, not feelings." Robert returned to his desk, opening a drawer. He pulled out a thick folder. "Do you know what this is?" Ethan didn't answer. "A full report on Grace Silver, financial history, employment history, personal details. My private investigators spoke with people in her past." Robert flipped pages. "She's had other boyfriends before you, at least 3 serious relationships in the last 10 years. So what? So any of them could be the father. She picked you because you have money." Ethan shook his head. "That's not true." "How do you know?" "Because she said so. Because the kid has blue eyes. Half the population does." "Ethan." Robert slammed the folder shut. "You're being played, and you're putting our entire family at risk over it. Dad, you don't know Grace or Lily. If you did, I don't want to know them. I want you to end this madness before it's too late." They glared at each other. Robert's expression was cold and calculating, while Ethan felt anger and sorrow entwined. "What do you want me to do?" "Never see that woman or the child again. Focus on what really matters. This company, your future, your real family. They are my real family. Your real family is this enterprise, the jobs we provide, the clients we serve, the people who depend on us." Robert leaned forward. "Ethan, you have the potential to surpass me, to take this company further than I ever could. But not if you waste your time on distractions. Lily isn't a distraction, she's my daughter. If you keep this up, you're out. Forever." The ultimatum hung in the air. Ethan knew Robert didn't bluff. Forever, forever. No way back, no second chances. Ethan walked to the window, staring at the city below. He thought of all the mornings he'd spent here planning the company's future. He thought of the dreams he had to grow the business. Then he pictured Lily, coloring in that tiny room, her excited face when he arrived, the way she called him Daddy, with absolute trust. "I should have chosen her a long time ago," he murmured, still looking out. "What?" Ethan turned to face his father. "I should have chosen Grace a long time ago. I'm not giving her up." Robert sprang up, face purple with rage. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." "Maybe, but it's my life. You're throwing away your career, your future, your inheritance." Ethan walked toward the door, his hand on the knob. "If you leave now, don't come back," Robert hissed, voice trembling. Ethan turned once more, looking at the man who'd raised him, taught him business, built an empire for him to inherit. "Then this is goodbye." Robert stood behind his desk, frozen, watching Ethan open the door. Ethan. Ethan paused but didn't turn. If you walk out, you'll have nothing. No money, no position, no name. You'll start from scratch. I know. You think you can support a family from scratch at 32. Ethan finally turned around. You did it at 25. Why can't I? For the first time, Robert Whitmore was speechless. The difference, Ethan continued, is that you built an empire but never truly had a family. I plan to have both. He left, letting the door close behind him. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the empty office. He strode down Whitmore Global's hallways for the last time, passing the offices where he'd worked for a decade, corridors he knew so well, people who greeted him as usual. He reached his own office and began collecting personal items, photos, books, a small cactus that Grace had given him the week before. Lily had drawn a card for him, which read, "To the best daddy in the world," in wobbly letters, with 2 hearts. He picked it up and smiled. It was worth more than the entire company. He wrote a simple resignation letter, left it on his desk, and departed. The elevator took him down 40 floors for the last time as a Whitmore Global employee. Ethan felt something he'd never felt before. Freedom. For the first time in his life, he'd followed his heart, and he had no regrets. When the doors opened on the ground floor, Ethan stepped out and didn't look back. He had a daughter waiting for him, and a future to build. A future built on love, not fear, on presence, not absence, on courage, not convenience. Robert Whitmore remained alone in his office, staring out the window at the empire he'd built, an empire that had just lost its heir. But Ethan had gained something far more precious. He had gained a family. 2 weeks after leaving Whitmore Global, Ethan sat in a small rented office downtown. 8 square meters, a second-hand desk, 2 plastic chairs, and a landline phone. A world away from the luxury he'd left behind, but it was his. He used his personal savings to lease the space and buy basic furniture, nothing extravagant, just practical. The rent was cheap because the building was old, but it was clean and in a decent location. On the wall, a simple sign, Whitmore Consulting, people-focused solutions for real businesses. Ethan spent his days calling old contacts, sending proposals, preparing presentations. He'd decided to do business consulting, but with a different approach, prioritizing employees' well-being and sustainable practices. It was tough at first. Many big corporations didn't take him seriously, seeing only a small-time consultant in a cramped office. But Ethan persisted, targeting smaller companies that truly needed help. Competition was fierce, yet he had 10 years' experience and solid contacts. Slowly, he began to land some projects. A bakery hoping to expand, a store needing better finances, a startup seeking organizational guidance. The first 3 months were the hardest of Ethan's professional life. He worked 12-hour days, doing everything himself, from answering phones to writing complex reports. His hands cramped from so much typing when his old computer malfunctioned, but for the first time, he felt he was building something that mattered. Every client wasn't just a number. They were families who could make a better living, employees who could have better conditions. He still visited Grace and Lily every afternoon. It was the highlight of his day, the reason he worked so hard. Lily always greeted him with a huge smile and fresh drawings. "Daddy, look, I drew you in your new office." Ethan studied the picture, a man at a tiny desk, piles of paper around him, but wearing a big smile. "It's perfect, Princess." "You look happy in the picture," Grace observed. "I am happy," Ethan said, "for the first time in a long time." 3 months in, business was picking up, and Ethan realized he needed help. The firm was growing faster than expected, and he couldn't do everything alone. One rainy Thursday, he gathered the courage to ask Grace the question he'd been rehearsing. "Grace, can I talk to you about something important?" She set down her mug. "Sure." "Is everything okay?" "Yes, it's good news. My consulting business is growing faster than I thought." Grace smiled. "That's wonderful, Ethan." "Thank you. But I need someone to help me, not just a secretary. I need someone who understands what I'm trying to do, someone I trust." Grace began to see where this was going. "I'd like to invite you to work with me as my personal assistant." She was silent, absorbing the idea. "Ethan, that's unexpected. I know it might sound strange, But it's not because of our personal connection. Then why? He leaned forward. Because every time we talk about my work, you totally get it. You ask questions that make me think differently. You suggest solutions I never considered. Grace shook her head. But I don't know anything about running a business. I've never worked in an office. You know about people, Grace, about honesty, hard work, doing what's right, even when it's tough. That's what matters. He paused. Also, you managed life for you and Lily alone for 4 years. You stayed strong against all odds. If that's not competence, I don't know what is. Grace gazed at her hands. I don't want you hiring me out of pity or because of Lily. Grace, look at me. She raised her eyes. It's not pity. It's because you gave me what the entire world never did, courage. Grace frowned. Courage. Courage to leave a life that didn't fulfill me. Courage to start over. Courage to choose what really matters. Ethan leaned closer. I'm not offering a favor. I'm offering a partnership, a chance to build this new venture together. She pondered quietly. And Lily? I can't leave her alone. That's the second part of my plan. Ethan smiled. I'm about to rent a larger space. And I want to include an on-site daycare, free for employees who are parents. Grace's eyes widened. A daycare at the company. Yes, Lily would be our first child. You could work without worrying, knowing she's safe and close. Grace couldn't answer immediately. That's amazing, Ethan. But a daycare is expensive, and you need permits, trained staff. I've researched it all. Yes, it's costly, but happy employees do better work. It's an investment that'll pay off. Grace shook her head in awe. You've thought of everything. So, do you accept? She took a deep breath. I do. But on one condition. Name it. I want to learn everything. Administration, finances, HR. I don't want to be just a secretary. I want to be a true partner. Ethan held out his hand. Deal. Grace shook his hand. Deal. 3 months later, Whitmore Consulting moved into a much larger space, 2 floors of a commercial building. The first floor housed meeting rooms and offices, the second floor the daycare. Grace took on the daycare project entirely, researching licenses, interviewing teachers, selecting furniture and supplies. Ethan was amazed by her dedication. Are you sure you've never worked in an office before? He joked when she presented a detailed budget. Positive. I guess I have a knack for this. Indeed, she was indispensable. She greeted clients confidently, scheduled Ethan's busy calendar, and set up processes that kept the place running smoothly. Most impressive was her eagerness to learn. She arrived early to study reports, took online courses at night, read business books during lunch, always asking sharp questions. On the daycare's grand opening, Lily was the first child through the door. Wow, is this all just for me? She marveled, eyes wide at the colorful room. For now, Ethan said. Soon other kids will come play with you. Lily explored every corner, a dollhouse, a reading nook with bright cushions, tables for coloring, a toy kitchen. Daddy, this is the best place ever. Ethan grinned. You like it. I love it. Can I play here every day? Every day while Mommy works. Lily ran over and hugged his legs. You're the best daddy in the world. Grace watched, tears in her eyes. She could hardly believe how much life had changed, but Ethan still had one more change he wanted to make. A week later, he entered Grace's office carrying a folder of documents. Grace, I need your help with something. Sure, what is it? He set the folder on her desk. I want to make Lily officially mine. Grace opened the folder, finding legal forms and notary paperwork. Ethan, she already calls me Dad. She's part of my life. I want it legal. I want her name on paper, the way she's in my heart. Grace thumbed through the pages, overcome by emotion. Are you sure? This changes everything legally. I'm positive. Lily is my daughter. She always has been, ever since she walked into that meeting saying I was her dad. Grace nodded, eyes shining. Then we'll do it together. The legal process took a few weeks, but by late August, Lily Silver was officially registered as Lily Silver Whitmore. When the papers arrived, Ethan showed them to Lily. Look, Lily, now on paper you're my daughter too. She took the document, studying the words she couldn't read yet. What does that mean? It means everyone knows you're my daughter, that we're a real family. Lily smiled and hugged the paper. I always knew we were a family." The following months were filled with steady growth. The consulting firm thrived, hiring 3 more employees, a senior consultant, an administrative assistant, and another daycare teacher. Grace was blossoming. She joined client meetings, contributed strategic ideas, and even started a night course in business administration. "You should have gone to college a long time ago," Ethan teased. "I'm too old for that," she joked. "You're 28, Grace. That's not old." "It's never too late. Do you think I can graduate? I think you can do anything you set your mind to." On a Friday afternoon, 6 months after moving into the bigger office, Grace and Ethan stood in the small office kitchen, sipping coffee. Lily was upstairs in daycare, her laughter drifting down the hall. "Are you happy?" Ethan asked suddenly. Grace smiled. "Very." "You? I've never been this happy in my life." They stood in comfortable silence, listening to the office bustle around them. "Grace," Ethan said quietly. "Yes. I never stopped thinking about you." Grace paused mid-sip. "What? Ever since that night, 6 years ago, you never left my mind." She set her mug down. "Ethan, I tried to forget, married Vanessa, buried myself in work, told myself it was just one night, but it wasn't. Not for me." Grace felt her heart pounding. "I never truly let it go either," she admitted. "But I was scared. Of your world, of being judged. That world doesn't exist anymore. It's just us now." She smiled through tears. "Then let's build a new one that fits you, me, and Lily." Ethan rose from his chair and walked closer. Grace stood too. They embraced, finally free to express what they'd always felt. "I love you," he said. "I love you too," she replied softly. "I always have." They kissed, a kiss 6 years overdue. From upstairs, Lily's voice floated down. "Miss Anna, can I go show my drawing to Mommy and Daddy?" Grace and Ethan broke apart, laughing. "Let's go," Grace said. "Our daughter has another masterpiece for us." "Our daughter," Ethan repeated, savoring the words. 3 months later, Ethan made another big move. He bought a house. Not a mansion, but a cozy home in a family-friendly neighborhood. 3 bedrooms, a yard, and a little patio. "Is this for us?" Lily asked when they first visited. "It's for our family," Ethan confirmed. Lily ran through the house, exploring every corner. There was a bedroom just for her, painted pink, an office where Grace could study, a big living room for them all to gather. "Mommy, look at the backyard. Can I plant flowers?" "Yes, my love." Grace turned to Ethan. "Are you sure? It's such a big responsibility." "Grace, we're already a family. Now we just need a home for our family." She kissed him. "Then yes, let's live here together." They moved in over a weekend. They didn't have many belongings. Grace and Lily owned little, and Ethan had left most of his old life behind. But they had each other. Their first night in the new place, after Lily was tucked into bed, Grace and Ethan sat on the living room floor, looking around. "Feels like a dream," Grace said. "If it's a dream, I don't want to wake up." Lily appeared in the doorway, barefoot, clutching Teddy. "I can't sleep." "Come here," Ethan said, opening his arms. Lily ran to them, nestling between Grace and Ethan on the sofa. "It's nice to be in our own house," she murmured. "It sure is," Grace agreed. The 3 of them sat quietly, cuddled together. For the first time, they felt completely at home. 6 months later, on a Saturday afternoon, they strolled through the neighborhood park. Lily raced ahead, chasing butterflies, while Grace and Ethan walked hand in hand. "The firm is doing great," Grace noted. "Really great. We might need a bigger office next year. And more staff. And more kids in the daycare." Lily dashed back, breathless and grinning. "Daddy, Mommy, I made something special at home." "What is it, Princess?" "It's a surprise. You'll see when we get back." Once home, Lily darted to her room and came back holding a sheet of paper. "Look. I drew our family." She showed them the picture. 3 people holding hands, a brunette woman, a tall man, and a small girl, all wearing big smiles with hearts drawn on their chests. "This is my family," Lily announced proudly. Grace and Ethan exchanged a smile. "Our family," Grace gently corrected. "Yeah. The best family in the world." Ethan scooped Lily into his arms and pulled Grace close. "The best family in the world," he echoed. And they decided to begin again, together. Not as people undoing past mistakes, but as people building a future founded on love, presence, and the courage to choose what truly mattered. The firm kept growing, the family blossomed, and for the first time, life made perfect sense. Because sometimes, the hardest decisions lead to the happiest endings. And in that little house with a yard, the three of them, Grace, Ethan, and Lily, finally found the true meaning of home. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.